Hello everyone and welcome to this Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer showcase. In this 1v1 match, I'm going to be playing the Skaven led by Lord Skrolk, the Plague Rat himself. And guys, we're going to be facing off against Indie Pride, a Milk and Cookies Total War who's going to be playing the High Elves. So guys, let's jump right into this game and take a look at some of these glorious rats in the front line. So over here, I do have a front line that's kind of a combination of the Death Runners mixed with the Clan Rats. So Clan Rats are pretty much the rank and file of the Skaven. They're not the weakest infantry. There are the Skaven Slaves, which I do have a few groups of. I think there's some over here. These are definitely the cheapest of the bunch, but Clan Rats are kind of in the middle. They have 24 melee attack, 30 melee defense, and 26 weapon strength. But something that's funny about these guys and pretty much all of the Skaven infantry is they have this ability called Strength in Numbers. So when their HP is above 50%, they get 6 leadership and 8 melee defense. So it's kind of like, yeah, we have the numbers, we have the power, but as soon as things go south, they actually lose those stats. So they lose that leadership and that melee defense, and they get plus 12% speed. So they actually scurry away, which is pretty funny. So that's something that you have to take into account about this Skaven. Their frontline troops often will rout very quickly. These guys only have 56 leadership, and the more elite Death Runners here, well, they have 82, which isn't half bad at all, but they scurry away with their scurry away mechanics, so they're able to disengage really well, and then they're going to rally and come back, and it's a pretty funny mechanic for sure. Aside from that, I do have the Death Runners here, and these guys are going to be kind of the core of my army. They have very poor defensive stats. They only have 20 armor, so they can take a ton of damage from missiles. Granted, this was actually my first game with the Skaven, so I didn't really know the strengths of all the units yet. But regardless, the High Elf front line, unlike Wood Elves and their kind of ancestors from the first game, they have very good armor. So the White Lines of Thrace here, right here, I think is it Thrace? Yeah, probably. They have 80 armor. The Swordmasters of Hoth have 90. You can see the Wood Elf units, have a fair amount of armor themselves, so you definitely need some armor piercing to deal with those guys. So we have the Death Runners right here, and yeah, so Clan Rats, Death Runners. So Death Runners have some cool abilities. They have the concealment bombs, which I wasn't very good about using this game, but they're basically rat ninjas. I don't know if they should be used in the front line. I probably kind of messed up a little bit in that respect, but they can essentially, give them some stock and make them invisible and disengage. So it's pretty cool. If you're in a bad engagement or enemy cav are coming, you can kind of, give them stock and, sometimes squeak away. Pun totally intended. They also do have the Weeping Blade. So they lower enemy armor by 50%, which is huge, which is going to allow my Clan Rats to do quite a bit more work. So that's pretty much my entire front line, just a Skaven horde of Death Runners and Clan Rats. In the back, I have the mighty Lord Skrolk. And, I like Queek Head Taker, but Skrolk is definitely kind of more my style. He has some pretty funny abilities. He has the Rod of Corruption, which damages enemies around him, which is an activatable item. It's not a spell. But he also has the Lore of Plague, I think is what it's called. So Pestilent Birth. It has 2 charges, and you can summon 2 groups of Plague Monks, which are, a middle tier. I would say they're better than the Clan Rats. Maybe not as good as the Death Runners, but they're still very strong. So you can summon 2 groups of those. You can Bless with Filth, which kind of imbues poison on a unit of your choosing. On top of that, he does have a Pestilent Breath, which is an AoE cone attack, which you can now manually aim. It is so awesome, guys. So when I start doing some live battle casts with the Skaven and some of these other guys, I'll make sure to show you guys all that fun business. And they also have one other ability right here. Let me find it. It is the, not Aura of Pestilence, but he has one where he can summon the, Vermintide. So this one has 6 charges, and you can actually summon the Clan Rats, which again are the kind of a, mid-tier, lower tier kind of infantry unit for the Skaven. But he is incredibly good against the High Elves because he can summon those troops behind the front line. Then the rats are going to swarm on those archers. So it's pretty cool. In the back, I do have the, what is this thing called? The Plague Claw Catapult. This guy's pretty much just an anti-infantry catapult, good for poking archers and the armored infantry. And then I also do have the Warp Lightning Cannon, which is more of an anti-large tool. So I figured, Indie Pride might get a little fancy and bring some dragons. So I wanted to have a tool to poke down those large units or even, against like Tyrion. And, it's pretty cool. The Skaven of all the races definitely have the best artillery. I mean, they have several options. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have 2 other artillery pieces you can choose from. And they all seem to be quite powerful. 2 groups of Clan Rat Spears defending the back. I also do have 2 Rat Ogres over here. So I wanted to have a little bit of a cav action. And these the Rat Ogres are very good against units like, for example, let me look over here, against the Swords of Hoth. So these guys are armor piercing, anti-infantry, pretty armored themselves, but they don't have an anti-large bonus, so they kind of struggle. And the Clan Rats can really beat down those type of units. Not the Clan Rats, excuse me, the Rat Ogres. But the Rat Ogres, 83 weapon strength, pretty fast. They have 60 speed. They also do have Frenzy. They have Scurry Away, so they have that same mechanic that if their leadership is low, they can actually run away a little bit quicker, which is funny. They cause fear, but they do not cause terror, which, I would definitely be terrified of one of those things. In the back, I also do have the Poison Wind Globadier. So these guys I was trying to be very stealth with. These guys massacre large targets. So if you can get like an enemy lord, like for example, the princess landing on her dragon, not really noticing these guys, they will tear her to shreds. Granted, they have incredibly short range, so they only have 85 range, so you really have to kind of position them right, and they're very susceptible to kind of getting jumped. Even though they have 100 armor, they still have a low model count, and you got to watch out for that. So aside from that, some spears, I got some slaves on the far side, and that's pretty much it. Just kind of been sieging him with my my catapults back here with the plague claws, and having a good old time. So Indie Pride does have a princess for his lord. So the princess is it's strong. It has 500 weapon strength. It has high melee attack, good melee defense. but it's kind of like a Glady from the Wood Elves. It has missile attacks. It has a lot of utility. You can see it's taking that warp cannon right to the... oh, look at its face following me. That's so funny. But I think she has high magic, so volley of arrows, dragon horn here, which gives missile damage and weapon damage. It also has the talisman of Loic, so a lot of kind of augmentation abilities. So I don't think it's a caster. I think these are actually all abilities. So it's kind of like a very in-depth Glady that has a ton of different abilities. So look forward to seeing how he uses that. In the front, he has a bunch of archers, which have massive range, 180 range, which is kind of like Deepwood Scouts for the Wood Elves. In the back, he has the white lines of Thrace, which are kind of an armor-piercing infantry. So if I had like vermin, what are those guys called? The storm vermin, or those very heavily armored rats. These guys would be very good. Granted, they're not going to do too great against fodder units. He does have some spearmen, 2 groups of the Swordmasters of Hoth, which are going to really shred my rats to pieces. They have anti-infantry, pretty good stats across the board. I mean, 48 and 46 melee attack and defense respectively. In the back, he does have the Dragon Princes, who are beasts. These guys have a charge bonus of 80, great weapon strength. They're, a pretty elite cav. Lore of Life, he does have Dwellers below, so Indie Pride getting a little wild over there. And he also has Regrowth, and he also has Spearmen in the back. So that's pretty much it, guys. Let's get this show on the road. So right now I'm advancing, and I made a little bit of a mistake. I thought I had clicked the stealth ability, but I totally misclicked it. And these rats are just getting massacred by Indie Pride's arrows. So very well played by him, kind of targeting these guys down, these Death Runners. But they are very fast. They have close to 50 speed, at 48 speed right now, and they're going to probably be able to catch some of these archers before his reinforcements can get there. So things are definitely going well in that respect. You can also see my plague cannon in the back getting in there, and you can see the rats have caught them. So they're going to be dragged down into the Vermintide. Granted, you can see these guys have been taking a ton of arrows. And if I'm not mistaken, Indie Pride's Lord actually landed right there. So he was able to just shred these poor Death Runners right here. So, some nice kind of a staggering with his formation that is kind of forcing me into a weird position. But regardless, I do some okay damage against those archers, but the rats are going to scurry away now, which is fine. They'll probably come back shortly, and it's not going to be the end of the world. So the warp cannon shooting in, you can see the Skaven have engaged in the front line. So these Death Runners here, now that they are engaged in melee, and they haven't been, oh, look at that karate kick. He just did like a backflip and then kung fu kicked that guy. That was freaking awesome. But the Death Runners are really going to tear these guys to shreds, and it's going to be a very rough matchup for these Spearmen, who are low tier infantry. We do have some clan rats engaging on the far side, taking some missile fire, but they are shielded. And let's go ahead and take an overarching look at things. In the back, I also do have Stormvermin with halberds, kind of just protecting and screening. I wanted to protect these poison wind globadiers to make sure they didn't get kind of taken advantage of, and because they're going to be one of the tools for winning this game, later on. So over here, my clan rats are going to get massacred by Indie Pride's Dragon Princes, and it's not going to be fun for them. I mean, they are. I think are these clan rats, or are they slaves? So let me go ahead and check here. So these are actually slaves. So these are literally like 100 gold. They almost cost as much as like peasants, which is pretty funny. But the Dragon Princes are going to massacre them very quickly. So over in the main fight, my Rat Ogres have gotten around the flank and got a decent little engagement here. So the Rat Ogres are going to start beating down a lot of these Swordmasters. It's a very good matchup for them. Oh, didn't mean to fast forward there. Oh, and you see the Rat Ogres actually pick that guy up and beat him down. That's pretty cool for like how small of a unit they are. So the Rat Ogres getting in here, but Indie Pride has pulled some of his spears to kind of fend them off. So very well played there. I have some slaves coming around the far side who are going to help support. So what I'll probably end up doing is pulling the Rat Ogres back now that he has mostly spears here, and then engage with the fodder units. But you can see his Swordmasters took a ton of damage, and they pretty much had to pull back. So I did get the Vermintide summoned, so Lord Skrulk here did summon some Plague Monks in the back. So Plague Monks are a pretty cool unit. Anti-infantry definitely could have been my front line instead of those, instead of the Deathstalkers, I think is what they're called. But the Plague Monks are kind of chasing the missile units back here, and you can see I also do have my Death Runners who are chasing those guys, and it's just it's a wild match. Anytime you play with the Skaven, there's just so much going on. It's kind of like playing Goblins, very micro-intensive, but you can see some of his archers still online. He has a pretty healthy little firing line back here, but my artillery is still, providing some good fire. Got that warp lightning cannon back here, only 10 kills, and, I have 29 on that one, but, it's not bad. So I'm going to shoot in here and hopefully be able to hit some of these archers. I really need to shut these guys down because they're just tearing up a lot of my rats. You can see those clan rats taking massive damage. Definitely not the most accurate Skaven contraption over there, but we're trying our best here. So the Rat Ogres are kind of rallying, running around. They do have the scurry away, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they do. So they're going to be able to get away. Frontline engagement here is going pretty well for Indie Pride. The Spearmen are kind of holding off some of those Skaven slaves, which isn't surprising. But in the center core, my Death Runners are doing very good, and also I got another summon of Plague Monks with Lord Skrulk, so this is going to be bad. I've gotten through his back line. I have my Storm Vermin as well as my Plague Monks charging back here, and these guys are summoned units, so they're going to disappear. You guys can also see I do have my my Warp Cannon kind of targeting some of these Dragon Princes, so they're starting to get very low. And these guys are pretty elite cav. I look forward to seeing how they do against like a lot of the old world factions. So they charge in and just massacre those rats. But you can see the warp cannons are coming in and just taking out those Dragon Princes. 7 or 8 of them go down immediately. I also do have my Storm Vermin, 109 of them. We're pretty much a hard counter to the Dragon Princes. So Indie Pride does land his Lord. You can see his Princess. I do use the Rod of Corruption, and I also have Lord Skrulk coming in. So Lord Skrulk is, he's not a pushover of a combatant. Even though he is a caster, he has some decent stats. I mean, he has this ability right here called Contaminate. So it lowers their leadership. He has 400 weapon strength, and he does have some, decent single target abilities. So Lord Skrulk is getting in there and kind of laying a slapping on that. But really, guys, the big trap, my Globideers are over here. So the Globideers are going to get a full free volley. So I was waiting the entire game for this opportunity. So the princess right here is fighting the Rat Lord, and you can see this guy, he gets hit with a warp cannon, then he gets hit with a full volley of those Globideers. They're going to get a second volley here, and his princess just took a beating. And a whole nother volley coming in from those Globideers is going to send this Lord running to the hill. So Lord Skrulk is a little bit isolated right now, and he doesn't have the most armor. He only has 30 armor, so Indy Pride's missile line here can do some, pretty decent damage. He does realize the threat of those Globideers, but they do have 100 armor themselves, so they're very, very tanky. However, the big kind of determining factor there was that warp cannon. The warp cannon did a massive amount of shock, just direct hits across the board. Then the Globideers came in there and applied that heavy anti-large and armor piercing. So that's what's cool about these guys. They have a pretty heavy anti-large bonus if we look. Let's see what it is. Yeah, it's actually, of 28. So right now they're throwing into the white lines of Thrace right there, doing some very, very good damage, and they're just going to kind of scurry around and just pick off things wherever they can. So you can see the Plague Catapult in the back is just kind of picking off these archers, and he's trying to get away with his Dragon Princes. Most likely he's going to pressure the back line here. I unfortunately left my Clan Rat Spears a little bit far back and didn't move them up to adjust, so Indy Pride's probably going to be able to get a pretty good charge there, which is going to be tough. But the Rat Ogres have good AP. They can probably definitely do well against the Dragon Princes, and he does block me with that Mage. So he has some archers, but the Vermintide is relentless, and Lord Skrulk can summon a lot of the rats. So every time I could, I was just summoning Clan Rats and sending them after the missile. So you can see the Clan Rats back here. They got their little prison shanks out, so he's probably going to get caught for sure. It's so funny. Man, the Skaven, something I really like about them is it feels like you're playing like a swarming horde of rats. You often lose the frontline engagement, get pushed back, but then they just keep coming, just more and more numbers. Lord Skrulk just bringing these poisonous rats to the battlefield. It's really cool, guys. And I honestly think, from my tentative assessment, I think that the Skaven and the Dark Elves are going to be some of the more competitive factions. Granted, Lizardmen are so good too. I mean, Lizardmen have a ton of tools. If anything, I would say maybe the High Elves are one, maybe, I don't know, they don't have as much many unit options, so it's a little bit tough. Granted, I've played the least games with the High Elves. I've only played one game, so I don't really know them terribly well, whereas I played a few with the Skaven, although this was my first one. So, the Skaven slaves and the Death Runners back here are chasing down some of his missile units. In the main fight, you can see Indy Pride is rallying a little bit, so he has the Swordmasters of Hoth, as well as these Spearmen coming in. You can see my Globideers just bombing these guys, dropping that poison, and the Storm Vermin are going to come in the main fight and just, intercept these guys. So Storm Vermin aren't really good, don't have a good charge bonus or anything, but they're very durable. I think they have 90 armor, so they're going to hold for a little while. They are shaken, but they're going to scurry away, and they're buying time for my cannons to get back online. So the Rat Ogres company were able to kind of fend off the cannons. I do have Lord Skrulk here, who's in very, very good health. And it looks like I think Indy Pride's Lord actually got shot out of the sky by my cannons back here. So one of these, the Warp Lightning Cannon. So that's a big advantage for me. Lord Skrulk is, again, a decent combatant, and he does have an ability that hurts leadership. So anytime he can get in here and help to chase off these Swordmasters, and you can see the Swordmasters were fended off by the Clan Rats, which is always a pretty sad way to go. And you can see Lord Skrulk, I think I was using another summon ability, so just summoning hordes and hordes of rats, and it's so fun, having this Skaven caster that just summons hordes of just these haggard creatures, and you're just chasing down these arrogant High Elves, which is pretty fun. But the Globideers were definitely, pretty heavy MVPs in this matchup. I only brought one, but they did good damage against pretty much everything they hit. Having racked up 61 kills despite their late engagement was pretty darn good. So at this point, most of Indy Pride's forces are broken. He does have this Mage back here who's, still has probably the Dwellers Below and some other action going on, but I think there's just too much. And Lord Skrulk is in perfect health. I have my artillery, so this Warp Lightning Cannon is going to start shooting at that Mage, and look at the damage it did. Against these targets like this with its anti-large bonus, it can really shred. And I also do have that artillery, which is kind of blasting those guys. So that's going to be all she wrote for the High Elves. So, I like this Skaven. Definitely very good. I mean, they have a lot of tools. The Death Runners are going to be a very micro-intensive unit, but the fact that they have that stock ability, had I used that stock bomb and then charged his archers, he wouldn't have been able to pick off half of them, and it could have gotten a really good engagement. I like the Clan Rats. Honestly, for their cost, they're okay. Rat Ogres are pretty neat. Granted, I foresee them getting rode down by the Cold One Riders that have the anti-large. That's going to be rough for those guys. But Skaven are fun. The Globideers are good. The Storm Vermin, they held their own. But Lord Skrulk is awesome. I definitely think in a competitive sense, he's going to be a little bit better than Queek. It's not actually Squeak Head Taker, guys. It's Queek. But, Queek's a good duelist. But, Lord Skrulk has those summoning abilities. And, of course, he has access to the Lore of Plague, I think is what it's called. But I don't know. There's so much more to, experiment with. I look forward to playing, a lot of ladder games. So, guys, as soon as Total War Warhammer 2 comes out, you guys can count on a ton of multiplayer battles. But as far as Indy Pride's army goes, it had a lot of archers, and honestly, those archers performed pretty well. They were able to really just kind of massacre my Death Runners, which cost 1,000 gold, mind you. So he was able to get some good value there. The White Lions got a ton of kills, but I mean, the kills, it's kind of like playing against goblins. The kills aren't really reflective of how well they performed. But something I think that could have been helpful is having some backline defenders, because as soon as the main engagement started, I advanced everything, and the archers were alone in the back, and I was able to just really chase them down. I think leaving like one or two, like even just like fodder DPS units in the back would have been very helpful. But yeah, very well played to my opponent, Indie Pride. We'll definitely be playing a few more games, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that Skaven versus High Elf showdown. And guys, I got more content coming soon.